And we're live, I think.
All right. I do see that we're live. Howdy, friends.
A little concerned. Is it working?
Well, I'm here, but I don't see anybody else. Oh, there we go. We're
There
live.
we go. Hi,
And
friends.
oh, I see. The settings will show us.
Okay.
All right.
I got
Woo.
concerned because it says 0 watching. But clearly,
This looks like a lot of people for 0 watching.
Yeah. Woo.
Well, Wistia, good at video hosting, bad at math.
Oh no, I forgot my SparkToro mug.
Well, I have yours, so I appreciate it. Welcome back, friends. It's been a little while since we did one of these, and it is great to be here with you for our first SparkToro Hours of the year. What do we have? We have a hashtag, Amanda.
We do. Our hashtag is SparkToro Hours.
I think you should use Mastodon, but of course, Twitter and LinkedIn are also options. If you need a Mastodon invite, I'm going to pop open my Mastodon and put it in here. And I'll make the case for Mastodon, which is it's really nice and friendly. It sort of feels like it's the SparkToro Office Hours of social networks. That's what I would say.
Oh, I like that.
Let's see. Suggest my account. No, invite people. There we go. Copy. All right. If you need a Mastodon invite. This is for Mastodon Social. Obviously, there's many different Fediverse networks that you could join. I like that one because it's big and popular, and it is a little bit slow. I'll say that, but I think the admins are working to make it faster and better. It also works kind of like email, so everybody has their own server and they all join up. And then if you don't like somebody's server, you can block them. It's kind of nice as well. Amanda and I have lots of fun on there.
It is fun. I think I've just decided to use Mastodon for mostly food things. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a good food network.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a group chat with all my friends and occasionally a new friend that I didn't know was a friend.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Which I appreciate about it. So today, friends, we've got an exciting presentation for you. We also, Amanda, the most often asked question about SparkToro Office Hours, what might that be?
I think it might be, will we get the recording? Will people get the recording? What do you think, Rand? Should we sell it?
Yeah, that sounds like us. For the low price of $0, you could be the proud owner of this recording. I believe what happens is Wistia will email everyone right after the presentation, usually within 1 to 3 hours, sometimes less.
Yeah.
And
usually.
And you will get a copy of the link to the presentation, which includes the slides and this recording as well. It will be in your inbox.
Yeah.
And if you have any friends who wanted it, it will also be available on SparkToro's website on the Office Hours link. Usually about a week or two.
Usually, and actually, I think like right after we wrap up here, the recording should be available instantly on the same URL. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, I think, do we have most folks here? Should we kick off?
We can kick off in a minute. We still have some people coming in.
Okay.
And the watching sign works now, so
Ooh,
we have a couple hundred friends here, so should be good.
All right, excellent. Well, Amanda, I will tell you the exciting news from our backyard.
Ooh.
Which is, I don't know how it was marketed to them, but apparently raccoons have found out about Valentine's Day. And so I'm not sure I recommend this because it's sort of National Geographic levels of not safe for work, but I recorded a video of them engaging in their activities. I don't know if you've ever heard the sounds of raccoons making little baby raccoons, but
I've
it
not.
is unique, a very, very unique sound, different from all the other animal sounds that I've heard. I'm also excited that we have so many first-time listeners here who are probably confused as to why Rand is telling a story about raccoons mating in his backyard. The answer, friends, is Amanda and I will often banter for about 5 to 7 minutes before we kick off office hours, and that's to give folks time and also to tell you entertaining stories about our weird semi-urban lives.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we call the pest control people because we're very worried. Like a couple of years ago, Amanda, these raccoons nested under our back deck, and they
I
had little
remember
baby
that.
raccoons, which is kind of adorable but deeply problematic because raccoon scat is super toxic and very dangerous, and also the raccoons themselves, if they like bite or scratch you, big problems. Rabies risk, all that kind of stuff. So we called the pest control people, and the guy came out and he said, basically, we can spray your backyard with mountain lion piss, urine, and that will keep, that's the thing that will keep the raccoons probably in your neighbor's yard instead of your yard. But trapping them doesn't really work. And anyway, so
Oh.
now we have to manually chase them off until the mountain lion urine can be acquired to
Do,
seem.
do you, all your neighbors have raccoon issues too?
I
Do you know?
we haven't talked to a whole lot of them. Geraldine talks to neighbors just to the north of us, and apparently they have been raccoon free. I don't know. Maybe our yard is just more entertaining.
Maybe everyone else has the mountain lion piss in their yard, and they're like, "Yeah, that's so weird that you have all those raccoons." So you're
That wouldn't completely surprise me. But in any case, they take a long time with their amorous activities. Like I didn't realize that the raccoon mating process, a lot of mammals, let's ignore humans. A lot of mammals, my understanding is it's like 30 seconds, right? It's just, real fast process. But for raccoons, apparently they'll keep going at it for hours and hours and hours. Anyway, it's very odd. And then they sort of take breaks to do some odd self-cleaning activities. It's
Ooh,
just, yeah. Anyway,
good for
raccoons.
them. Good for
Yeah,
them.
not great.
Yeah.
Not great.
I don't get a lot of raccoons in my neighborhood. We do get lizards though in the summer.
I love lizards. They're my favorite.
They're pretty
Okay, I want to come
cool.
visit.
Yeah. I mean, like everything freaks me out. Like I'm scared of everything, so it freaks me out. But I don't want my son to have my fears. So when we see that, I'm like, oh, isn't that so cool? Like we should go up to it. You can go. And he's
So
like,
you're saying
okay.
that time that I tried to get you and Casey to come to Ecuador to see a bunch of weird, cool animals, you didn't tell me that secretly you hate weird, cool
Oh,
animals.
I do, and I hate that I hate them. Like I think in theory I love animals. Like I am kind of anti SeaWorld because makes them depressed. I'm mindful of that, but I also am I'm afraid of everything.
Well,
Yeah.
you just call me when you see cool lizards. I want to see them. I
Yeah.
love lizards. I think they're so great. Alrighty, friends.
Yeah. I think we're ready to get
Let's
started.
do it.
Unless people want to do a full hour on neighborhood wildlife.
I mean, I will say there's a lot of content marketing opportunities for pest control folks. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to share entire screen one. Okay, I just want to make sure we can see my screen changing. Yes, wonderful. Excellent. Oh, we're going to hide this guy. Cool. Alrighty, friends. Most of you are here, I suspect, not actually to learn about ways to ward raccoons off of your backyard, but to learn about marketing attribution, which for a long time there's been a belief unfortunately propagated by marketers like us. I'm guilty of this as much as anyone. A belief among executives and technologists and entrepreneurs and founders, management, leadership, bosses of all kinds, that things that happen online can be attributed to their source, right? So if somebody sends you traffic and that traffic turns into sales, you'll be able to figure out where it came from. You'll be able to tell them, you can prove it to them. And that's why digital marketing is so powerful and why you can afford to keep putting dollars toward it, all those kinds of things. Well, all right. Generally speaking, my 2 cents, I wrote a blog post about this, is that I don't think marketers should try and predict the future. I don't believe that it's a good and useful, valuable use of our time. I see tons of people talking about the future of AI in marketing and ChatGPT. I think it's great to experiment with things and to fall passionately into new technologies and be excited about them. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that marketers, generally speaking, should follow our audiences and customers, not try and lead them to new places. Of course, I say this after trying to get you all onto Mastodon. Just ignore my hypocrisy for now. We'll deal with that later.
As we say, not as we do, right?
Man, I actually hate being hypocritical. I'll have to explain why do I like Mastodon and yet I don't think marketers, because I'm not suggesting you market on Mastodon. How about that's the difference. I think you should be there. Right. I don't think you should necessarily go and do all your marketing there. I just want to hang out with my friends there. Amanda, when we know what's coming, I think it's silly of us not to prepare. And that's the situation that we're in with marketing attribution and measurement. We are in a world not where we have to predict the future and we're uncertain about what's coming. We know what's coming. And therefore we can plan and prepare for it in this world. And I'm going to try and take you through not just my thought process around this, but also all of the news and goings on so that you've got a sense of this space. All right, wait. What is it that's coming? All right, so I'm going to start with this move that Apple made last year, where when they want to track you, they do default opt-in. And when an iOS Apple-owned app tracks you, they get lots of different information and better information than what anyone else gets. And if anybody else wants to track you, Apple nudges them not to, right? So it's sort of nudge one way, nudge the other way. This is apparently very effective. In fact, something over 80%, I can't remember, 90% of Apple users allow Apple to turn on personalized ads for them, but do not allow, I think it's lower, it's like 40% do not allow other apps, including Facebook, who is losing $12.8 billion just last year from this one privacy change, right? It's obviously not privacy. Apple doesn't care about your privacy. They care about, building a competitor to Google and Apple and to Google and Facebook and Amazon, and being able to serve advertising, because advertising has really nice margins. And Apple has noticed how those ad margins can help fund other parts of big tech businesses, and they'd like it for themselves. All right, Chrome. I think, as we all know, Chrome's been pushing this off for a long time, but supposedly they're going to next year phase out third-party cookies, right? So the cookie tracking that's been available to us on the web for the last, 23 years, whatever, 24 years, is going away. And because Chrome is, you can see that's the green line here, right? So Chrome is a massive dominant force in this field. And number two is Safari, which is Apple. So goodbye third-party cookies, right? Like this is gone. The technology is basically going to be dead after next year. The EU also has made some changes around not just what is enabled in the browser and what can be tracked inside apps, but actually how analytics is allowed to operate and collect information on users. Several EU countries have basically outlawed Google Analytics. It's not legal anymore. Sometimes, when a newsletter of ours includes tips or a blog post of mine includes tips around GA, I will literally get email from someone, in Austria saying, hey, how am I supposed to do this? It's illegal for me to operate a website with GA. So practically banned. Very, very frustrating. Meta's actually facing, I think this is one of the reasons you saw Meta's stock taking a dive last year, in addition to other things. Now they've come back up a good bit because I think it's not quite as bad as investors expected. But Meta is basically facing the complete loss of all behavioral ad targeting. So the EU is considering making behavioral ad targeting based on activities that you take on Facebook cannot be used, or Instagram can't be used to target ads against to you on other websites and platforms in other apps. I mean, that's a massive change. That would obviously hit not just Meta, but Google and YouTube and potentially Apple and Amazon as well. Amazon a little bit less so, because Amazon does most everything on their own website, which kind of keeps it contained. So what are the ad tech vendors doing about all this? Like, how are they going to respond? By the way, we're talking about advertising right now, but we will talk about organic marketing in just a minute as well, because both of these are hugely important. So essentially, there's a few things that product folks inside the ad tech industry can do, and that is build their own closed ecosystems where everything happens inside the singular application. TikTok tried to do this last year. They failed, but they're trying again. A lot of mobile gaming apps are trying to do this, where they build a subscription model and then they have data inside their thing and they sell the data to advertisers, and the advertisers advertise in the app against it. And then there's a lot of this, what I would call, we're going to, rather than personally track individuals, we're going to group like-minded and like behavioral people together into cohorts, and then we're going to track those cohorts. And this removes the privacy thing, because you are part of a group and we never say who you are and we don't expose who you are, but we make this group of people available to be advertised against. This is essentially the model that virtually all the ad tech vendors are moving towards. Google's privacy sandbox, which is their new attempt after Flock kind of failed and died. Now they have Fledge, which you can see. The writer of this piece, I do recommend this writer and The Verge. I think they did a phenomenal article about this, right? But second are topics in Fledge. I really hate the way that acronym stands out on the page. So Google's privacy sandbox involves a whole bunch of technologies. In fact, I think 5 in particular. It includes the SDK, which is kind of the package of the mobile app developers, systems. It includes topics, which are essentially like the assignment of topic groups to behavioral cohorts of people. Fledge, which is the ability for advertisers to declare their own kind of topics around a group. And then attribution reporting as well. So all these things are changing in Google's new privacy sandbox. You can read all sorts of details, but essentially, most web advertising, big picture, is going to get less personalized. It will be less, we targeted this cougar or mountain lion urine to Rand Fishkin, and more, these people expressed interest in problems with raccoons in their backyard, and therefore people who might want to advertise mountain lion urine, for those of you who missed the introduction, that helps prevent raccoons from coming into your backyard. Right, we're going to have that that group be able to be targeted by anyone who's interested in consumers or homeowners or renters who are struggling with raccoon problems in their yard, right? And so now that cohort exists, the individual goes away. Let's talk about marketing beyond ads. I mentioned that this was, two-pronged. It's not just the ad tech world that's going away on privacy stuff. It's also the organic world. And look, I mean, I have always argued and always been surprised that while 95% of all online activity is around organic content consumption and marketing and that kind of stuff, 90% of the budget goes to advertising. I've always thought that's weird, but it really hasn't changed because there's no incentive for the big platforms to change that. All right, so we know Google owns the search market. You could have your theories about what you think OpenAI and Bing's chatbot, which I think they're now calling Sydney, is going to do. To be honest, I think it's more of a press and publicity thing than actually will change consumer behavior around search. I just don't see it. But regardless of that, we know that a huge proportion of Google's searches already end without a click, right? Google's solving them right in the browser. Obviously, these new technologies are designed to take more clicks away, right? The whole AI movement in search is let's keep more people on the search results and to answer their query right away. Don't let them click out to somewhere else. So if you search for CRM for real estate, right, and you see the paid ads, generally speaking, over the last 5 years, that percent has been rising, right? And keyword data is still provided in those ads for now. This is one of the few places where there's some attribution possible. I think this is one of the reasons that Google paid search is such a resilient business, is because you can still get this data. But this, right, the organic clicks, that percent is declining, has been for many years. Keyword data is intentionally hidden. I don't think it's coming back. And the percent of searchers who are satisfied by, oh, I searched for CRM for real estate and, oh, look at that. Yeah, HubSpot and Pipedrive. I forgot that they offer, you know what, I'm just going to email my Pipedrive representative or my HubSpot friend. And no more clicks, right? You don't click on Forbes. You're not going to click on topproducer.com. You're satisfied. That percent keeps going up. And obviously that data goes to Google and Google alone. They can put you into behavioral cohorts based on it, but there's really nothing that a marketer can do with that data. They might see in Google Search Console, hey, someone searched for this, but didn't click, right? On you, at least. You know they didn't click on you. All right. So search has volume, massive amounts of volume, like the number of searches per searcher and searches per day, but it's a fast activity, right? It's something that we do when we have a need, as opposed to social, which dominates our time online. I really, really like the study that Hootsuite and We Are Social did together. I've got the links in the presentation. You can check it out, and Amanda might pop it in there, the chat for you. But they did just an excellent job of summarizing all sorts of data from many sources in ways that I think are really useful. What I find fascinating is that most of us are using a lot of different social networks. When you say, oh, is my audience on YouTube? Are they on Twitter? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Reddit? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? The answer is yes, they're kind of on all of them. It's just a question, for me, it's not a question of are they there? It's a question of does the activity that you're trying to target them with happen on that platform? The overlap is huge too. I love looking at this, right? So if you say, for example, hey, I really want to reach, my audience is very Instagram centric. They're probably not on YouTube. Oh, well, I don't know. 78% of all Instagram users are also using YouTube. More than half of them are also using Twitter. If you look at TikTok and you're like, oh, I'm, generation TikTok. Well, guess what? Almost half of all TikTok users are also active on Twitter. Just saying, right? It's not one or the other. It's all these places. The question is, where's their relevance? But every one of these networks has the same rule. And you've probably heard Amanda talk about zero-click searches before. But basically, every single network is trying to keep you on their website, hiding links, moving them down in the organic timelines. Unless you're Elon Musk, in which case you get to be at the top of everyone's timeline.
Yeah, you just change the algorithm to your favor.
Yeah, just have your engineers pull all-nighters to make you the only person to whom the timeline doesn't apply. And then you tweet weird porn clips about it. What a whack job. So here's a couple examples. Not of Elon Musk, but this one, right, has a link. And generally speaking, things with links don't perform very well. This one has no links. You can see kind of the difference. And this is, I'm using a sample size of one here, but if you scrolled through all of the different posts that I've made across all the different networks, for me, it's LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. But Mastodon doesn't count because Mastodon has no algorithm. It's just the timeline. So links don't hurt you on Mastodon, unlike the other networks, but it's sort of an outlier. You can see here, post impressions about 10x, right? So 1/10 the amount of impressions shown in the timeline. This is a rough average for me when I include a link versus when I don't. And you've probably seen similar things on there. So all these platforms, we put together kind of a blog post about this, and Amanda did a great job with that, showing the zero click across major web platforms where it's nearly universal at this point. Even if you do get the click though, so we promote a lot of our blog posts, obviously office hours, right? Some of you probably saw this on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and click the link, but you don't get the data anymore. Something's really funny. The numbers never add up. And this is because, so my understanding from folks who've looked at attribution in depth and sort of referral strings is that if you click on a link in the mobile app version of Facebook, there's often no referral string passed. And sometimes that's true on desktop, depending on your browser. Safari, for example, seems far worse than Chrome. And Firefox seems to be a little better than Chrome. It's very peculiar, very hard to figure out exactly why they're doing this. But dark social, I'm talking about it as a Facebook example, but dark social exists for Instagram. It exists absolutely for LinkedIn. I'm sure many of you have looked at your LinkedIn referrals and been like, gosh, are you sure? I promoted this blog post or this URL on LinkedIn and only on LinkedIn, and I see that it got 700 visits, but LinkedIn says it sent me 85 visits. LinkedIn sent you the rest of them. It just didn't, it's not sending you the referral string. The referral string is not accurately appended, not being recognized. Is GA4 going to help with this? Hell no. The opposite of going to help with this. Yeah, I'll let you, if you want, I would check out Jeff Sauer's course on GA4. I think he does a good job of explaining the attribution problem there. Also true, by the way, this is also true on content networks, right? So they're obviously YouTube and TikTok technically have links in them to the open web, but they're very difficult to find and they get almost no clicks. They also, TikTok, when it passes a link from the app, tends not to provide the referral data either. So all of this looks like it's just showing up in your analytics as direct or type in traffic. Now, when you look at a long link that's not to your homepage, nobody typed that in directly. They didn't bookmark that page before you ever produced it. What happened was that the GA4 course, yeah, that's Jeff Sauer. I'll look it up at the end and send you the link. But he has an excellent course. I actually subscribe to his newsletter and think he does a great job with that. But this, these do not pass the referral string. So when you look in your analytics and your boss or your team, your client says like, well, how much traffic did our YouTube, videos send to us? The answer is, I can't tell you. I can't tell you because most of the people who see you on YouTube and might be interested, they don't click. They're not going to click the see more link under the description and then go there, or click on your channel and then go to your about page and then click on your bio link to come to it. Not going to happen. What is going to happen is a bunch of people will open a new tab or a new window, or tomorrow they'll search for your brand name. That's how most of this traffic gets to you. All right, so let's review what's going on here in the world. What happened? Browsers, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, right? They realized that privacy could actually be used for their moat building, and by cutting off third-party cookies, they could actually insulate themselves from competition. Ad platforms like Google and Amazon and Apple, ByteDance, right, which is TikTok, they're like, loss of persistent cookies makes it really hard for us to take credit. So we're going to build behavioral cohorts as an alternative here. With Google search, they want to show Wall Street more growth. They know that one way to get more searchers searching more often is to provide instant answers that require no click. The more times you search Google and you get an answer that accurately solves your problem, the more likely you are that you'll go back to, Google again and again. And Google's seen this in the behavior. This is why they say they have zero-click searches, because they know it makes searchers happy. Social networks, right? Like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Reddit and LinkedIn, right? They all want increased time on site. They want you to stay on their platform. And so they don't let people click out, and they hide the refer strings when they do. And the content networks, they're losing behavioral data from the rest of the web. And so they use content consumption. TikTok is the, sort of master of this. They use content consumption patterns on their own site to do their targeting. And then they hold the data. And the only way to get at it is for you to advertise on their platform using their systems. This is a hard world, friends. This is not, this does not make me super excited, but marketers have always been creative. And the one thing I think that's good about all of this is we are actually seeing a little bit of decay in the monopoly power. You go back 3 years and we're talking about literally just Google and Facebook owning the entire stack. And now competitors are creeping in and more platforms are available and more advertising options exist. But this is also leading to something, actually the New York Times, Tiffany Shu wrote this yesterday. Why are you seeing so many terrible digital ads? This is actually quite a fun and well-researched article. I was pretty impressed with her work. And the answer is a lot of the big advertisers are doing more creative and different things. They can't see the same ROI because they can't see the attribution that they used to get. So they're pulling back. Twitter is sort of the worst of these. I think they lost like 60% of their advertisers, and a significant percent of the Fortune 500s have pulled out of Twitter entirely because they don't want to be associated with it, which actually I completely understand. And so Twitter's ads have been filling up with weirder and weirder stuff, right? The sort of, as Tiffany describes in the article, the late night TV commercial advertisements. For marketers, what does this all mean? Basically, organic attribution is in most cases gone for good. If you see sales that come from an organic channel and you're able to attribute it, you should probably expect that somewhere between 5 and 50 times as many actually happen, but you can't see them, right? Hey, we posted on LinkedIn, someone came to our site, someone signed up for our email list. That's extremely rare now. What's very common is we posted something on LinkedIn. It was very effective, but we'll never be able to see it in our attribution data. That's just the reality. Most digital ads, I won't say most, a huge portion of digital ads outside of search are moving away from direct attribution, right? The idea of this person clicked this and took this action on your site, to implied correlation. Implied correlation is the new attribution. I'm declaring it right here now. Although I don't have to declare it. Every major ad network's already declared it. So, which means devices in this behavioral group saw this ad, were exposed to your message, and later some number of devices that were also in that behavioral group took some action on your site or your platform or in your app. That's right. That's what's going on. And yeah, Tal, you bring up a great point, which is, what about multi-touch attribution? Right? Sandra asked, well, what about these multi-touch attribution models? Okay. I think some of these models can do a decent predictive job if you are a massive advertiser across many different sectors and they build up enough sort of data to build decent machine learning cohorts about like, hey, if you invest more here, we tend to see that ROI goes up, or we tend to see that exposure goes up, or whatever, metrics go up. But these ad platforms that promise you, anyone who promises you real attribution, where they can say, hey, this group of visitors who took this action were, they started on this platform, and these three, advertising or marketing investments are what nudged them to become customers. I don't think that's true. I just don't buy it. I don't think that is possible. No matter how savvy and sophisticated they get. I think what they're good for is if you're a large advertiser and you want to optimize some spend and you want to grow some spend and put it into the right places, but this attribution stuff is hard. There's use cases for these. That's my position on it. I can send you more. There's actually a good LinkedIn thread that I had about it with a bunch of very savvy folks in that field. All right, smart marketers. Number 3, smart marketers inside smart organizations are going to move toward what I call measurement instead of attribution. Old school measurement. I'll talk you through that. Everybody else is going to pay this added tax to the platforms for the privilege of the implied attribution. That's how we've been going for 7 years now, 8 years. It's just going to continue. All right, let's talk measurement versus attribution. So attribution, just basic beginner course in case you need to screenshot this and show your boss or your friend or your client, and you're like, hey, this is what this is. Attribution is, I see this ad while scrolling Reddit, and I'm like, this is a pretty good ad. Twitter, yeah, it's dead. Haha, that's kind of funny. Scrape data from Twitter before it's too late. Build email lists with your competitors, followers by using Clay. Oh, okay, Clay. All right, so I click. I visit the website, Clay. I don't remember, it's clay.com. Yeah, it is clay.com. And then I join the kiln to get access. And then in my analytics, right, my GA, I see, Reddit sent me this many visitors, and this is how many of them took the action of signing up. That's attribution. Attribution is, I know where this person came from. I know how they found us. Maybe they heard about us before as well, but they saw it was that ad that caused them to take the action. Okay, so last click attribution, but it is an attribution. Measurement is something like this. When The Last of Us from HBO, right, this zombie video game TV show, I haven't actually seen it, but
it's so good.
Is it really good?
It's really good. You should watch it.
Okay.
And I'm not really a zombie apocalypse kind of person.
I don't like zombies.
Yeah, and I thought after this pandemic that I would be like, I'm not into this. It's very good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So
that's my contribution here.
Okay. Excellent contribution. TV show recommendations from Amanda, marketing attribution drivel from Rand. Join us next time on Office Hours. So you run this awareness ad, right? You're HBO Max, you run this awareness ad, and there's a link to watch the trailer, right? But you get to see stats. You get to see stats about how many people viewed the ad, how many people hovered on the ad, how many people clicked the ad, how many started the trailer, how many completed the trailer. And then you can compare that, if you're HBO, you can compare that to the other series that weren't promoted on Reddit, or you promoted some on one subreddit and some on another. And right, you're trying to see, okay, how did Mythic Quest do? Well, it didn't do quite as well as that, but it did better than Barry. And it wasn't quite as good as Harley Quinn, but it did better than the Flight Attendant, right? So you've got all these different metrics you can do the comparison. Many digital marketers, frustratingly, we've been trained to call these vanity metrics. They're not conversions. So we don't get to treat them like conversions. We don't get to like show them to our bosses and teams because we've been trained, hey, this is not, show me the money. Don't show me impressions. I want money. I can't tell you how many digital marketers stand on stages and say that. And you can't. There is no possible way HBO Max is going to be able to attribute signups here. What they'll see is lift. They'll see more people are interested in The Last of Us. Some of that's probably organic because the show quality is apparently quite good. Some of it is people talking about it. Some of it is our ads, and they just don't know. Let's go back in time. This is Chicago. I think we're on Michigan Avenue here in 1960. And Coca-Cola is spending millions of dollars on outdoor advertising like this billboard, right? This billboard over the Four Roses bourbon, whiskey, I think. Have a Coke. That's an expensive billboard. Look at that thing. They had to make the neon of the weird KFC looking guy, right? Talking down. How did they decide to run that message in that location? I mean, there's no attribution. No way is there attribution. What Coca-Cola and its advertising agencies did in 1960 was they looked at the audience. Who are the people who are going up and down Michigan Avenue? How many people? How many cars? How much traffic is it getting? What's our potential reach there, right? Context and relevance. So is this an area that we, Coca-Cola, the Coca-Cola Corporation, want to be associated with? And is it where we want to associate our product? We're going to do market comparables. We ran some ads in New York. We ran some ads in Philadelphia. We ran some ads in Cincinnati. Here's what we saw in terms of local lift-based measurement. If sales in downtown Chicago and the areas to which Chicago commuters commute to go up, Coke can attribute some of that lift to ads, especially if they don't run the ad in Detroit, right? And then they see, oh, hey, gosh, we had a big outdoor billboard campaign in Chicago. We ran none in Detroit, and we saw an 11% lift in same-store sales over the next quarter in Chicago. Okay, we basically know the value of reasonably smart targeting and awareness of that our billboards create. Vanity metrics drove almost all of 20th century advertising, literally. I'm just saying, if you thought the 20th century grew the advertising and marketing world quite a bit and sort of proved the model, you're right, it did, and yet they didn't have attribution and they made it work. I think this is the model we're going to have to return to if we're organic marketers. So here's Clay, right? That website that scrapes Twitter or whatever it is, and a bunch of other places, and you can get data from them. So if I know, this is from SparkToro, but if I know that people who follow Clay listen to these podcasts, Clay could go, I bet we'd reach more people like the people we already reach if we advertise, market, get on Masters of Scale or This Week in Startups or Why Aren't You a Doctor Yet or 20-Minute VC. It's sort of the equivalent of saying, what's the Michigan Avenue for our customers, but in 2023, right? Let's go get in those places. So I have this cartoon that I like to run a lot because I feel like this is the conversation we constantly have over and over. Like, hey, boss, I see that a huge percent of our audience is, going to be, they're listening to this podcast, they're subscribing to it. You can replace podcasts with anything. This YouTube channel, they're reading this online magazine, they're subscribing to, this newsletter. How about we pitch some co-marketing ideas? And the co-marketing with podcast, there's no way to prove attribution. Hell no, get away from me. Right? But you come to them with the Google ads and you're like, hey, we have this multi-attribution model. We pay a bunch of money for this software. The model says we need to put another $5 million into Google ads and we'll probably get 5.01 million in sales. Do you want me to do that? Hell yeah. Put it on the company card.
Technically the ROAS is positive.
I mean, this is the thing, right? It might be positive, but there's no relativity. You're only comparing things that you're confident you can prove, or some mathematical model that you pay for says it can prove, right? Or you're trusting Google's stats that it can be proven. I don't know. There's a lot of faith going on that I just don't trust. When I've talked about this many times on Office Hours, so I won't belabor the point here, but when a lot of these advertisers pulled back on their advertising on hundreds of millions of dollars of spend, they saw results go up because a tremendous amount of digital advertising, no matter what Google or Facebook or ByteDance or Amazon or Apple tell you, are not producing incremental sales. They're not. They're just taking credit for sales that would have already happened. That's my soapbox. I'm going to get off it for a second. Let's talk about how untrackable marketing can actually be measured, because it can be measured. So just like Coca-Cola in the 1960s, but with far more sophistication than they had, because we have much better tools and data sources than they do, we can look at things like, okay, awareness. How did an audience learn about a brand, learn about an option, learn about a product, right? And we can measure this kind of with impressions. Yes, it's a vanity metric, but it does show us that someone saw the thing. Are we sure they paid attention? Are we sure they remember it? No, we can't be. But we know that a thing was seen by the person. So, for example, even in Twitter analytics, which I've come to loathe what Twitter's become, but they do show an impression count, right? And obviously it matters very much to their owner, who had his engineers rewrite the algorithm so that he would get more impressions than Joe Biden because he got jealous during the Super Bowl. So they must mean something. What they mean is someone saw this thing. That's all. I'm not telling you to take it for more than it is. But next step in the path is usually interest. People who say, oh, I saw this thing, right, from Clay, or I saw the, big cat urine for sale to get rid of my raccoons in my backyard. And I'm going to measure that with search volume, because what tends to happen, a ton of branded search and interest search is around things that people learned about somewhere else. I didn't go to Google and suddenly type in, whatever, certain brand of mountain lion urine. I learned about the problem through a series of things, and, awareness drove me to it. And then I expressed interest through search. And you can track that with Google Trends. You can track it with Google Search Console. You can see it through third parties with clickstream data, right? If you want to go to somebody like a Dados or a similar web, or I think SEMrush has some data on this, you can get that data too. And then there's visit data. So far, all vanity metrics, right? Visitors from those channels are going to be labeled direct type in or branded search, right? Here you go. Yes, Aaron, I would very much like you to bring your animal to our backyard and get rid of these amorous raccoons. Okay, you can measure, right, with visits from direct and type in, especially direct and type in, and also branded search, which is where a ton of this traffic comes from. And then familiarity lift, right? People who've heard positive things about you, who are more likely to engage and click and convert. And how do you do that? Well, you see what your overall traffic and click through and conversion rates are like. If people are saying good things about you in the market and there is more familiarity with you, you will see more people getting to the next step in your sign up conversion process, right? That can be seen as well. If you only ever do one marketing activity and you exclusively do that marketing activity in one place and you do nothing else, you could actually perfectly measure the impact of it with just vanity metrics. The problem is almost no one does only one marketing thing. And I don't think you should. But if you wanted to perfectly measure or perfectly test, you could do that and you could see it. Here's SparkToro's analytics, right? I pulled this maybe a month ago. So here's almost all of our traffic from direct and organic search. Almost all of our organic search is just for the search term SparkToro. We get virtually no SEO traffic. We're sort of quite an interesting case. So someone emailed me yesterday to ask if I would go on a link building podcast to talk about our successful SEO, because they looked at our link profile and were like, "You're doing so good." And I was like, "Friend."
Oh, because we get a lot of links?
We get lots of links.
Oh.
But we don't rank for anything. I don't know. I'm not sure. Someone in SEO can explain this, but my belief is that a good link profile is not all it takes to rank. Certainly not anymore. But you can build. I built this out. It took me forever. It's super annoying. I don't actually like it. But you can build an impossible to measure marketing dashboard by looking at things like brand interest. I have a link to this. You can get the doc if you want and copy it yourself. But you can look at things like, what's the 3-month trend growth rate of our brand interest from branded search volume, from total visits from search, from direct and type in visits, and from the interest average from Google Trends. And I'm going to map that month over month over month. And I'm going to build this dashboard. And I'm going to be able to show, hey, we've grown brand interest. We've grown interest in our product set. This is possible. Is it wise? Okay, here you're going to hate this part. This is the part nobody likes hearing. At SparkToro, at least, we don't just reject attribution, we reject most measurement as well. We do, and we've had a lot of success rejecting it. You know who else is like this? What's his name from Ahrefs has talked about this a lot. John from Ahrefs. Yeah, Tim Solo. Tim Solo has talked about it, right? He basically says, we don't bother measuring anything except sort of like conversion rate and subscriptions. That's really it. And that's basically what we do at SparkToro as well. We look at, hey, if our marketing is working, it means that our conversion rate generally over time should be going up. It means that we should be getting more subscribers. It means that those subscribers should be using the product successfully. And hopefully when they quit, they sign back up within 6, 12, 18 months, right? When they have the need for the thing that our product does, they come back to us. Those are the things we measure. Why are we like that? Rand, you're a professional marketer for 17 years at Moz. Didn't you talk about how to measure all this stuff and do this? Why are you with your own company sacrificing this? It seems like madness. It's because it's more costly for us to measure. It's such a waste of time, such a huge portion of effort for Amanda and I to try and measure all the marketing that we do, that I'd rather we just waste some of our marketing effort unknowingly doing things that we like doing, that we think are going to have positive impact. And if they fall flat, that's okay. We don't need to bother worrying about measuring them. Vanity metrics are good enough. right?
And I
When
think
I
to add on to this with an even like more tactical, like super tactical example is something we've kind of talked about on and off over the years is should we A/B test the landing page? Which I think many teams would say, well, obviously you should. And there's the part of me that thinks it should we have new messaging or some new elements here. But then, when we talk it over with Casey, he also brings up the fact that, well, to get something statistically significant, we have to test it for like what the minimum of 3 weeks, probably more like at least 6 weeks.
Yep.
And then at that point, when you do get something statistically significant, it's going to be like this. And then in the end, it's going to be like, oh, now we know we should have our headline in active voice, not passive voice, which is something we would have known anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the amount of lift that you need, right? You have to get such a huge amount of lift to make the time series conversion rate testing worthwhile, because you're going to lose if you're doing a 50-50 test, you're going to lose, right, on 50% of them, and you're going to win on 50% of them. So that test, if it takes long enough, the ROI actually goes away, right? Versus just time series testing where you can learn faster. But it's a tough thing. Look, I've talked to lots of conversion rate experts who sort of like the statistical model as soon as you get over a number of visits and conversions. And we are definitely under that number, right? SparkToro has, you saw, right? Like a few thousand visits a day, and we have a maybe between 6 and 20 conversions in a day. It's not quite enough. We're not robust enough. If we were Amazon, obviously we'd be doing that kind of stuff. But if you're a small, medium business, we do this. We have this flywheel where we find sources that reach our audience and we try and provide value to them. Hopefully we wow them and turn them into our audience by bringing them to our site. And this process scales quite well for us. Right? We basically, Amanda, you do this all the time, right? Like you're constantly, every week you're emailing me like, hey, I got this, co-marketing agreement. Like we're going to work with this. It's informal almost all the time, right? You'll work with some email newsletter they'll promote our thing and we'll talk about their thing because we like what they're doing. You like what they're doing. I want this source to influence to talk about my brand. What could I do that would earn me that coverage? And then we brainstorm, we figure out something that's going to work. And that, apart from, we don't use paid media or SEO. We find those sources of influence and then we are valuable to them and they return us our, that impact. And that's basically how our whole system works. Okay, wrapping up. 2023, you've got a few options. Throw money at big tech providers who will continue to provide implied attribution. Build a hard to measure dashboard. You could use the one that I proposed, but you could certainly make yours much more sophisticated, or you could use some of these multi-touch attribution, machine learning based tools. And you've got to be willing to shut off ads and organic investments for extended periods if you really want to confirm lift, right? That's the only way to know whether ad platforms are just taking credit for conversions that would have happened anyway. If you don't shut them off, you'll never know. And number 3, you can measure the big stuff, right? Traffic, conversions, revenue, and then ignore most everything else. Be thoughtful and creative about your channel investments and your tactical investments, and use vanity metrics to decide whether things are showing promise or not. There's not a whole lot else outside of this. Right? Like almost everyone is going to fit into some portion of these 3 buckets. That is the new reality. Most companies are going to keep doing this, right? That's why big tech is going to, and advertising is projected to continue to grow massively, even in a recessionary environment. That's why it's not a competitive advantage to do it, because everyone's doing it, right? All right. Thank you very much for joining. We have some time for Q&A, but I wanted to take one more minute of your time and mention that Amanda and I are both going to be at SearchLove in San Diego, where I will be giving an even more in-depth sort of advanced version of this presentation, talking more about some of the attributions examples, telling some stories from that. I would love if you joined us there. It would be so wonderful to have you there. This is actually, sadly, this is going to be the very last and final Search Love. But Amanda, I believe the Search Love folks gave us a
They gave us a
$300 off. Yeah.
$300 off. I'll drop the link right here.
All right.
So you all
Amazing.
can save $300 and hopefully stay at the Kona Kai Resort. It's a beautiful waterfront resort. I'm really
By the way,
excited to
we
stay
make no
there.
money from this. I know we sound like an
No,
ad. It's just
no.
that I've loved this conference for like 14 years and I'm so sad it's going away. And so I just want the last one to be like filled with people that I want to see. And
Yeah.
plus,
And I've
Amanda
never
and I are,
been. Excited.
yeah, have we ever been to a conference together?
we
Maybe,
we went to
maybe that one in
one
LA. Yeah.
that one in LA, but I just kind of like popped in when you gave your talk. I didn't really attend it.
All right. We're going to.
So this one I'm like
Turn on.
really attending, staying for a couple days and
Amazing.
everything. I mean,
All righty, friends. Let's do some Q&A. I've got a little bit of extra time, so if we bleed over and past the hour, we can do that. But I saw lots of questions coming up there, and hopefully Amanda recorded some of those for us.
yes. I'm gonna drop the link again to Search Love. All right. Is there I didn't go through the Q&A function. All right, friends. If you have questions, I can scroll up too. But if you have questions you want to drop into the chat box now, we can start addressing them.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
I saw the quick one at the end there from Justin. We do like Wistia a whole bunch for lots of reasons. The recording and what we can do with our Wistia account. We obviously use Wistia for video for other stuff too. So the analytics on it is really nice, and the platform is quite friendly. This is our highest registered for webinar ever. And
I think ever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it appears that Wistia has a higher conversion rate to us, or maybe this is just a more interesting topic than our other ones. But my suspicion is Wistia is also doing a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I think Enrique and someone else also asked if we could show that last slide again.
Oh, yeah. Is that the one with this one?
This one, friends? This was the last slide. So
certainly all the slides will be provided to you, but I'll keep this up. We can put it we can shrink it to the background, and then folks can do it that way.
Okay.
You come over here.
Bunch of good questions. Let's see. Maria has a question around, I think this encompasses some of the other questions that have been asked. So how can we prove the actual ROI of marketing efforts and show the impact on business financials while measuring lift, especially right now with budgets getting cut all over the place?
Well, I mean, so let's see. The good news is budgets going up or down doesn't necessarily impact your ability to measure or to report on lift. Unless you're not the analytics person and like your analytics team is being taken away or some tool is being taken away. But generally speaking, when you are measuring lift, what you're looking for is you're kind of going the Coca-Cola route, right? You're trying to find hey, we're going to run this ad in this place. Do we see stores in this area doing better as a result, right? Selling more Coca-Cola. And you're kind of doing the same thing. We're going to embark on a strategy of over the next 3 months, we're going to invest in new tactic X, or we're going to try new thing in the channels that we've been doing in this other way. And then we're going to look and we're going to see, did we get more traffic from that? Did we get a lift in impressions to our product page? Did we get a higher conversion rate? Did we make more sales? Did those sales come from the types of people who we think are associated with this place, right? So if you're selling your mountain lion urine and you decide you want to sell it to veterinarians, right, who might be distributing it to their customers who have small cats and dogs who are worried about animals in their backyard, right? And so it's a new distribution channel. So now you measure the lift from people who sign up, who have I don't know what the veterinary letters are at the end of their name, but you could conceivably use data like that to measure that lift. And even though you can't attribute it, you know that you're doing that tactic to that group or in that place. That's the fundamental idea behind it. You can't prove attribution, though. It's just not possible. You can't say this person who came and bought came from us doing this marketing effort. You can only say, we did this marketing effort. Things look better than they did before.
Yep. And as a sort of counterpoint, in a sense, about attribution among the big tech platforms, if you're using, Google search ads, and you're using Facebook ads, those two platforms are always going to be at odds with each other because Facebook is always going to want to claim attribution and Google's always going to want to claim attribution. So you'll still never really know. I mean, you'll know, like, yeah, they converted based on our ads in general. But if you are truly trying to optimize your budget for how much should I spend on Facebook versus how much should I spend on Google, you're never really going to know because each platform will try to claim the credit for the sale and
Yep.
that'll be that.
I mean,
and then in the end, because what will end up happening is whichever platform you spend more money on is going to be the winner. And then even then it's only going to be because of pure scale, not because one is actually better than the other.
Yeah. And the lift that you get from advertising, this is the other interesting thing, right? If you measure lift, not just for organic efforts, but for advertising efforts as well, you will be able to, over time, see which advertising platforms, as long as you're willing to test by turning them off, which platforms are actually adding new incremental sales versus which ones are merely taking credit for sales that would have already happened. So if it turns out that Google or your podcast strategy or your email newsletter strategy or your video content marketing strategy is actually responsible for most of the buyer journey, but many of those people or most of those people see a Facebook ad before they convert, Facebook is going to take the credit. When your marketing team, as Maria mentioned, when your marketing team, gets cut, when budget cuts are happening, they're going to cut this portion, not the spend on Facebook, because they think that they can attribute this, and they cannot. That's not what's actually happening. If you were to close down Facebook, if you were to stop advertising on there, and you saw, hey, we're losing about 4% of sales. Wait, does that mean 96% of the sales that Facebook was taking credit for would have happened anyway? Now we know the lift. Now we know how much they're actually responsible for. That's the test by turning off is the only way. And so few marketers are willing to do it. Why aren't they willing to do it? Easy answer, because most CMOs and CEOs, if you tell them, hey, to determine whether this is working, we're going to have to lose 4 or 6 or 8% of sales potentially. They're like, no way, don't do it. I'm not willing to risk that. I can't possibly go to my board next quarter and say, hey, sales are down 5%, but we learned something. No, that's not how CEOs get rewarded. So we're in the environment that we're in.
Another idea that I like to say around kind of attribution and measurement, more so measurement, is something that I like to shoot for called business sustainability or marketing sustainability, which is whether your marketing tactics, the things that you're working on, whether those sustain other parts of the business. So thinking about things like, not so much, hey, how much money did that blog post bring in for us? But also thinking about it more holistically, like, was that blog post representative of brand messaging? Did it also serve a product marketing function by way of, making sure that we were hitting on all of our key pillars? Did it also enable sales by way of a case study? So looking at how each of the things that you do power the rest of your marketing, then you can kind of shoot for how your output has an impact on the business bottom line. And over time, you can say things like, hey, this blog post series that we did on customer success stories actually paved the way for this in-person event roundtable that we do with our customers. And these things kind of feed each other as a nice flywheel. So that's another way to sort of look at how your marketing is powering your business over time.
Yeah. I mean, certainly we try and do a lot of marketing things that are multi-use, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one's interesting. I'm going to mispronounce your name. I apologize, but I think it's Huinind. What do you think of the advice to spend 60% of the communications budget on brand building, okay, and 40% on activation and performance? This is from Les Binet and Peter Field. I think it's very reasonable to come up with your percentages. I'm not sure that I would use an artificial number from a third party. This is the weird thing about marketing. Best practices doesn't necessarily mean it's best for you. It just sort of means like across an average of a bunch of companies. So I think taking the philosophy of it is great. I'm not sure I'd use the exact percentages. You probably can find a better balance for you, but I think it's a reasonable way to go. Jared asked, do you think this approach applies for new brands who are less than 6 months old? I love and wholeheartedly agree in general, but curious about your thoughts on new entrants. It's a very fair one. So I think about it this way, Jared. In your first 6 months, you have to do a bunch of experimentation and discovery, right? And so the name of the game at that point is finding the channels and tactics that are most effective. And that probably means I would start personally with kind of like audience research stuff. Like, let me understand the people that I'm trying to reach, what they pay attention to, where other people in my market are already having success targeting these folks and what they're doing. And then I would probably replicate the tactics that I thought were the most beneficial. And I would use probably a combination of vanity metrics and conversion metrics to try and figure that out. So, hey, our email newsletter is doing really well. That's a great start. Email newsletter is a very powerful thing. You can do all sorts of marketing in the future to emails. I would keep that up. It's a vanity metric, right, by the classic definition, but hey, it's still going to work. So I think that this is your job in those first 6 months is just find a flywheel that works for you, something that you can do over and over, and it keeps producing a result that you can then tie to eventual sales. That's sort of how SparkToro, that's how we figured out our model too in our first couple of years of operation. Okay. Al said, I got the point about how measurement without attribution around a podcast or another source works. If I bucket this in my mind like an influencer marketing strategy, then identifying the community or the source or the influencer becomes really important. Which platforms would you say work best for that right now? Al, oh man, I know this is the answer to every marketing question. But Amanda, I think it depends. I don't think there's one platform that is the best. There's no one that works right now. If SparkToro were to advertise on TikTok, we'd do terribly. And if you were a new dance-friendly swimsuit company, you'd probably do great on TikTok, right? So yeah. I don't know if dance-friendly swimsuits are a thing, but you get the idea. So there's this is why I think audience research is really important, because you are trying to identify the behaviors and demographics and sources of influence of your group of people that you're going after, which are going to be different than everyone else. And you should customize your strategy and tactics to them.
Yeah. It's also tough to say which platforms work best. Also, in that you need to different platforms will be a different fit for different kinds of businesses and for different kinds of marketing goals. So something I've learned kind of this is more anecdotal, but some friends who are starting to try out the TikTok influencer thing, who've grown followings in certain niches on TikTok, have been like, yeah, it's been pretty awesome I've figured out pretty quickly how to go viral, how to grow my following. But this audience is not high value. Like, they can't get them to convert to an email list. Like, I know someone who has tens of thousands of TikTok followers now, and they were only able to get 30 people on their email list from TikTok. Like, it's not a very spendy kind of audience for certain things. Now, where I think people are probably having success, and then this is just a hypothesis, is the TikTok influencers who are sort of doing content on direct response, like e-commerce products. like you need to get this Amazon dish towel, like things like that, that someone can reflexively go, oh, I do need it. Click, click, click. Got it. Versus try this B2B SaaS tool. Yeah.
I know that like TikTok folks who play video games, who are watched for their video games, often result in big spikes of sales of those games. But I also know that, if you're trying to sell landscaping services, you can get followed, but selling, even seeing a lift from it, the platform is an entertainment network. It's a content entertainment network, and
Yeah.
I'd treat it like that. I think that there's lots of other ignored platforms, right? I think podcasts are one. I think YouTube channels, especially in a lot of sub niches, are largely ignored in a weird way. I don't understand. It's also video. Some of them are also short form. Seems like a great place to go market and advertise. I do think email newsletters are hugely underinvested in by marketers because it's difficult to figure out which ones are, followed by your audience.
Difficult, and as far as creating email newsletters too, because if you're a marketing team and sells a product, the last thing you want to do is spend your email on just content. You're like, no, I gotta drive sales.
Okay, so Sam asked about the time series testing over A/B testing. Pretty simple concept here. So let's say you have two landing pages, right? The homepage of SparkToro, and we're going to test version A against version B. With conversion rate optimization testing, classic A/B testing, you run both of them to like 50% of the audience. So when someone fires up the page, right, a visitor comes to the page, you run a randomization thing, and you're like, okay, we're going to show them version A. And then another person comes, and you're like, we're going to show them version B. And then you see over time, our conversion rate was 3.4% for all the people who saw A, but it was 3.6% for the ones who saw B. And you have to be very careful, because if you look at 1 week of data, you might be like, hey, version B is doing great. And then you wait another 2 weeks, and you're like, well, that's weird. Version B is now it's underperforming. And then you wait 6 more weeks, and you're like, ooh, it's slid into the lead after, we had 1,600 conversions with 3.42%. So we got a 0.02% lift from that landing page. But then you might look at your retention metrics and go, shoot, the people who saw B and converted off B actually stay with the product not as long as the people who got version A. So B might have sold them an instant purchase, but not a usage pattern. Okay, we're going back to A. This is the challenge with A/B testing, right? It just very, very difficult. Changing a button color on an Amazon landing page, that kind of testing can sometimes work, right? Because it's a one-time sale thing, whatever. But again, Amazon would have to test like, are people buying products they're less happy with, and now they buy fewer things in the future, and they don't subscribe to Amazon Prime as long. All this stuff is complicated. Time series testing is, we think version A of our landing page is out of date and old and not as good at explaining the product. We want to try new version B. So we just put it out there. And then we see, okay, over the next 6 weeks, here's what's going on with all our metrics. This thing doesn't look as good. We're either going to modify it, back to do some things like A, or we're going to change it up, or we're going to go to version C, which is a combination of the best things that we think are in there about A and B. And we've talked to a bunch of our customers, and we're just going to iterate over time and try to see improvement over time. But we're never actually testing one exactly against another with 50% of the audience for some given amount of time until we see statistical significance. These are the two sort of competing philosophies. And Casey, my co-founder, right, our coworker, is pretty passionate about like, until you get to hundreds of sales a day, maybe even thousands, A/B testing often falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Should we cover? It's 12:15. Should we cover one more question? And
one more question, then we should wrap up.
Yeah. Somebody asked, I think it was regarding the last slide that you had, how SparkToro can help with solution 3? Maybe that'd be a nice question to end on. So on your last slide,
Yeah.
you had 3 points. I forgot what they said, but
Yeah, I'll pull it up. So basically, the number 3 was like the option, not option, but the advice to measure the big stuff, right? Like traffic and conversions and revenue, ignore most of everything else, and be willing to invest in creative, hard to measure channels. SparkToro can help with the which creative, hard to measure channels should you go invest in, because if you go pop your sort of audience or audiences into SparkToro and you search for them, and you discover like, gosh, there's a surprising number of our audience follows these YouTube channels or listens to these podcasts or engages with these email newsletters or uses these hashtags on their social media accounts. That gives me a great idea for a content marketing campaign or a co-marketing campaign to a bunch of email newsletter providers, or an ad strategy on YouTube. I'm going to plug these channels into my Google Ads account. And I'm going to go after them and see if I can get lift. I think someone just emailed us that that's what they use SparkToro for. And they were like, look at this great lift that we got in our ad campaign versus what we were doing before. Great. Fantastic. Love it. You can totally use SparkToro that way. The challenge, right? Like, I don't want to, SparkToro doesn't help with the other bits. All that other stuff around like philosophically figuring out what to measure and then being able to convince your boss or your client or your team to measure things that way. That stuff, SparkToro, the software product, can't help with, but SparkToro, the webinar and presentation creator, and hopefully, Amanda and I and our content and the blog posts you've seen in here and the link that you'll get afterwards, hopefully that can help with that portion of the problem. And so I think can a lot of smart people who are in this field, who are moving to this model as attribution fades away.
love it. That was great. As we wrap up here, can I give you my last little pitch on why you should watch The Last of Us? I'll tie it back here. Don't worry.
Yeah,
tie it back.
Bring it around.
It's a very good show. Mm-hmm. It's not, I mean, if you like zombie apocalypse stuff, then you probably like it, but you don't need to like it. But here's what's really beautiful about the show. It's a series, right? Like it's based on the video game, but each episode is kind of self-contained. Like each episode can kind of stand on its own, or you could pick out any episode and you'd understand like 95% of it. So there's a little bit of this zero-click element to the show where you don't need to watch the whole thing to fully appreciate it, right. But it's better if you do.
Loved it. Yes, I think Lost and Founder and Lord of the Rings are right next to each other because the cover is blue. And I like sorting by color. Nick Offerman's in it. God, I do love him. He's great. Okay. I'm not quite sold because I hate zombies, but maybe I'll try a few minutes.
I hate zombies too. I'm just gonna say I hate it. I don't care for the zombie thing, but I really love this show.
All right. Yeah. All right. Friends, thank you so much for joining us for Office Hours. I hope we see you at Search Love in San Diego in March. That would be just amazing. Join us next month for the next Office Hours. You'll get an email about that soon. And obviously you'll be able to rewatch this one. It'll be up on our website. You'll get an email with the link. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye, friends.